It's pretty fascinating how two things can come from the exact same source, but end up being complete opposites, right? Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're going to profile the carbon group, and we'll be using a classic homeopathic text to sort of investigate two remedies. They share the same origin, but wow, they paint wildly different pictures of the human experience. So, let's jump right in.
And our whole goal here, we're basically taking a page right out of Dr. Allen's book. His original mission was to take this really complex subject, Materia Medica, and simplify it, to make it interesting and, actually useful. So that's what we're doing. Think of this as us being detectives, building a complete picture piece by piece.
All right, so here's the game plan. First, we'll look at what makes a carbon, that shared profile. Then we're going to start adding the layers, the patient's physical makeup, what's going on in their head emotionally, the actual physical symptoms, and, this is a big one, the triggers, what makes things better or worse. By the time we're done, you'll see these two totally distinct profiles emerge.
Okay, so let's get started. In homeopathy, it's useful to think of remedies as having a kind of personality or archetype. And today, we're putting two very closely related, but also very different, archetypes from the carbon group under the microscope.
So let's meet our two subjects. First up, we've got carboanimalis, that's made from animal charcoal. And then we have carbovegetalis, which, you guessed it, comes from vegetable charcoal. Now the key thing here is that they both come from the same core element, carbon. But, and this is the cool part, the kinds of people and the conditions they fit are just worlds apart. You'll see.
So if they're so different, what's the connection? What do they have in common? Well, it all boils down to this one core theme, a state of low vitality. The best way to picture it is like a fire that's slowly burning out. It's not getting enough oxygen, everything is kind of collapsing inward, and all the body's systems are just slowing down. This is the ground zero, the starting point for both of our remedy profiles.
All right, with that foundation in mind, let's add our first real layer of detail, the constitution. This is basically about the type of person we're talking about, their physical build, their temperament, what they're naturally prone to. So who are these people?
And just to make sure we're on the same page, when I say constitution, what does that even mean in this context? Just think of it like a person's fundamental blueprint, their physical hardware and their emotional operating system, all rolled into one. This is the bedrock for everything else we're about to build.
Okay, so look at this. This is where it gets really interesting. Seeing how that low vitality we talked about actually shows up. For carboanimalis, it's more of a slow, chronic burn. Think of older people, where things are just gradually breaking down. You get this venous plethora. That's just poor circulation, giving the skin a bluish tint, and their glands get all hard and swollen. It's really a picture of stagnation and slow decay. But then you look at carbovegetalis, and that's totally different. It's more of a sudden burnout, a total exhaustion of energy, a state of near collapse that you might see in the very young or the very old.
Okay, so that's the physical foundation. Now let's peel back the next layer and look at the inner world. How does this lack of vitality affect the mind and the emotions?
And wow, the mental states are just as different. With carboanimalis, you have this deep, brooding sadness. This person wants to be alone. They actively pull away from people. They avoid conversation. It's a very internal, withdrawn state. Now, the carbovegetalis patient, that's all about apathy. It's not even sadness, really. It's just indifference. Their mind is slow, sluggish, and they just don't care about anything happening around them. A total passive disconnection from the world.
All right, so we've got the physical type and the mental state. Let's get down to the brass tacks, the actual concrete physical symptoms. How does this whole breakdown of vitality physically manifest in the body?
The big picture for both of these is a story of stagnation and decay. The body's engine just isn't firing on all cylinders. Circulation is bad, everything's sluggish. It's a general theme of breakdown. But, as always, the devil is in the details, and the specifics are where we find the really good clues.
And this is where their paths just completely split. Let's take circulation. Yeah, both have bad oxygen flow, but with animalis, it's that slow, stagnant blueness we mentioned. With vegetabilis, it's a deep, profound coldness. That's what cyanosis is, an extreme cold that can be really dangerous. Then, look at where the system fails. For carboanimalis, it's all about the glands. They get hard, swollen, painful. Think neck, groin, that sort of thing. But for carbovegetalis, the whole collapse is centered right in the gut. We're talking massive bloating, tons of gas, and the only thing that gives them any relief is to belch. Okay, now we get to what I think is one of the most fascinating parts of homeopathic analysis, the modalities. This is just a fancy word for what makes things better or worse. And let me tell you, these little details are often the golden key that unlocks the entire case.
And when it comes to the carbons, there is one clue, one modality that stands head and shoulders above the rest. It creates this perfectly clear black and white distinction between the two. And it all has to do with the relationship to one simple thing, air.
Just look at this. It's a perfect mirror image. It's incredible. The carboanimalis person hates open, cold, dry air. It makes everything worse for them. They want to be bundled up, away from any drafts. Now flip that completely on its head for carbo-vegetabilis. This person is in a state of collapse, they're starving for oxygen, and they desperately crave air. They want the windows thrown open. They want to be fanned, constantly. This is the classic picture, someone who feels ice cold to the touch, but they're begging you to fan them harder. This one detail right here is often the single most important clue to tell them apart.
All right, we've laid out all the evidence. We've looked at the constitution, the mind, the physicals, the triggers. Now it's time to put it all together to create the final composite sketch for these two really distinct archetypes.
So let's recap the carboanimalis profile. Think slow, deep-seated decay. The big giveaways are those hard, swollen glands. Mentally, they're sad, withdrawn, they just want to be left alone. Physically, you've got that weak, stagnant circulation and, of course, that absolute hatred of cold open air. And then, in complete contrast, you have carbo-vegetabilis. This isn't a slow decay. It's an acute state of near collapse. The keynotes here, an intense, almost death-like coldness. That mental picture of just indifference, apathy. And the two big ones, that desperate craving for air, fan me, and that massive bloating that only gets better when they can belt.
So there you have it. Two remedies, both from the same element, carbon, both dealing with a state of low vitality, but each one takes a completely different path downhill, showing a totally unique pattern of symptoms.
And that really leaves us with a final thought-provoking question, doesn't it? What does it mean to catalog human experience with this kind of microscopic detail? You know, in our modern world of quick, broad-stroke diagnoses, how does this kind of meticulous, holistic profiling make you rethink what a symptom really is? Something to chew on.